and welcome to In Your Prime. I'm Jana Collier, publisher of the Dayton Daily News, the Springfield News-Sun, and the Journal News. We're so glad you're with us for In Your Prime. We're out in the community talking to local experts to help inspire and empower you to live your best life. We'll be at the Kettering Health Years Ahead Health Center in Centerville to learn more about internist physicians and dietary supplements. And we're talking to local experts about life insurance, water aerobics, and staying in your home as you age. The Southwest Ohio region is the perfect place to live at any age, but especially for us in the prime of our lives. We're eager to meet our guests, so let's get started. Dr. Ventura is a geriatrician specializing in internal medicine. He specifically cares for patients 65 years and older here at Kettering Health's Years Ahead Primary Care. Hello, Dr. Ventura, and welcome to In Your Prime.
Thank you. Thank you for the invitation and the opportunity to be here.
Well, let's just start at the beginning. What is an internist?
That's a very good question. We get it quite a bit in the clinic. People hear about GPs, family doctors, internal medicine doctors. So what's an internist? The main concept of an internist is a person who specializes in adult care, basically in the whole spectrum of adult care in any kind of chronic condition. Most of the time, we get to be working along family physicians or GPs, but we have a little bit of a special particularities and expertise when it comes to chronic conditions.
Got it. So when would a person really want to seek out an internist then?
I always tell patients, if you are one of those who have, 2, 3 or more prescription type medications in the basis of 2, 3 or more medical conditions, that's a good time when an internist is a good resource. You see, chronic conditions has to be, I always call it like a symphony. There's a lot of parts moving, there's a lot of noise in the background. So the role of the internist is to be the hub, the place where the information comes to and where the coordination of care happens to. And, that's usually related to people who have a lot of diseases going on at the same time.
So is an internist sort of like a consultant then who comes in to other doctors, or can it be your primary care physician?
Well, it depends where you live, depends on the resources available in your area. Kettering, for instance, there's plenty of clinics where internal medicine doctors are assigned the roles of primary care physicians. I would say, if you have the availability of having an internist as your primary, again, if you have many conditions and many medications going on, more than 1 or 2 subspecialists related to your care, an internal medicine doctor would be a great idea as a primary care doctor.
So that's a good segue to our question from our viewer. Yeah. And so the question from the viewer is this. I'm prescribed medications from several different doctors. How do my doctors communicate with each other to know whether those medicines are interfering with each other or causing any kind of problem?
So that's, I call it the question of the century when it comes to medical care, communication. It can be a challenge, the whole purpose of creating these electronic medical records, it's that, to improve communication in between doctors. In Kettering, we use a particular system that, it communicates with a lot of the other groups present in the community. Hence, I always recommend if you're going to have an internist as your primary care, let it be someone who has the ability to communicate directly with the specialty clinics. The internal medicine doctor is the one that is going to be in charge of doing what we call medication reconciliation, which is literally going one by one, analyzing why you're on that medication, does it interact with any other of your medication, the doctor who prescribed it, who might have been a subspecialty clinic, are they aware that you're taking these other drugs? So yes, the complexity associated with many meds and many problems, that's what the internal medicine world, it's about.
So I know you see all kinds of different patients. What are the biggest challenges that you see for older adults?
I would say, if I could, give you one answer, it would be what we call polypharmacy. Whenever you have 5 or more medications on board, uh, let it be prescription or supplements, we call that polypharmacy. It's a big problem. People like to take a lot of supplements. People see a lot of doctors. They get a lot of prescriptions sent from different sources. So that's one of the main challenges. And we have to be sure, as I said, we analyze why you're taking it. Is the dose appropriate for your age? Is the dose appropriate for your kidney function? And so many other details that, good family medicine doctor or even, if at all possible, internal medicine doctors can help you navigate that world.
I can tell that you're really passionate about people's health care. Tell us a little bit about yourself and why you got interested in being an internist.
I've gotten that question before. I happen to grow up in Central America. I come from a small town, and I had the blessing to grow up with my grandparents and my mother. Fortunately, my grandmother was diagnosed with Alzheimer's disease, and my grandfather was diagnosed with Parkinson's. And my mother became the primary caregiver for both of them. So in a way that shaped a lot, my decision to become a physician and eventually my decision to treat, pretty much geriatric patients only. I was able to see the whole spectrum, from the beginning through all the complications and, to the end. They are gone now. But I think that shaped and taught me a lot of the patience, commitment, and definitely a love that you have to have for those kind of patients. So I would say that was one of the main reasons why I went into geriatrics.
So, what are chronic diseases? Tell us more about that.
So when it comes to chronic conditions, think of anything that is going to last more than 3 months at the bare minimum and many, many times potentially for life, right? So we're talking about things like diabetes, and all the complications. Diabetes tends to affect the eyes, tends to affect the heart. It can affect your kidneys. It can affect the blood vessels to your legs, etc. So another example would be things like high blood pressure, which tends to be something that you can manage. You can potentially manage with diet and exercise, but a lot of people end up taking a medication, and that's something that doesn't just go away. You tend to have to take that for a long time. And another one would be things like heart disease. People who have gone through, heart attacks, people who have gone through strokes. Those issues leave a scar in your body, and those things need to be monitored. And there is a lot of treatment that can be given to the patient, hopefully, so it never happens again. Those are the diseases that, internal medicine, a physician can help you with, manage for, and again, coordinate the care in between subspecialty clinics.
So, what's really the difference between internal medicine and family practice?
Basically, it comes down to the training. Family medicine physicians, they have to go through a very wide array of specialties. They have to be trained in internal medicine. They have to be trained in pediatric care. They do have to do rotations in gynecological wards. So they have to go through a lot of areas of medicine and learn from all of them to be sure that they can help their patients. For an internist, we focus pretty much in adult care. We don't have to see children during our training. We don't have to treat pregnant women. We don't have any training in surgical cases. So basically, we spend the bulk of our training in adult care, and it happens to be geriatric patients. For the most part, it's going to be the senior adult population that inside with complications in the hospital and whatnot. So I would say training, background, and expertise becomes more of a paramount when it comes to an internist to focus in adult care.
So, how does Kettering Health Years Ahead Health Centers, how do they use internists?
Basically, the basis of the model is geriatrics only. So all our years ahead clinics, will only target and market to a population 65 and above. And, the vast majority of us are internal medicine physicians. We are very blessed and lucky to have some family medicine doctor who did a geriatric fellowship, which is an extra training after the residency. So I think, Kettering is being very I call it futuristic. They're looking ahead. Let's never forget the fastest growing population is the senior adults in the United States. So there's going to be a huge need for primary care who targets their expertise on this group. And that's where Kettering, is coming up with this, as I said, very, very forward and very futuristic approach to have clinics that are targeted for senior adults only. And nowadays, I'm part of the second clinic which opened up. And now Kettering is so committed to this model that they just opened a third one in Dayton. So that's I would say that's what makes a little bit, a little bit of a specialty type care specifically for geriatric patients.
So how would someone go about getting an internist?
Well, within our company, within our system, it's relatively easy. We have this wonderful website, ketteringhealth.org, where there is a specific engine. And there is some buzzwords. There's some keywords that you can go for. And specifically, nowadays in most search engines, you can say, I'm looking for an internist, internal medicine. And sometimes you can be even a little bit more specific and say, I'm looking for a geriatrician. Be aware, there's not a lot of people who specializes, so there is definitely a shortage of it. But, utilizing these tools and based on availability, that's one of the easiest way to go. Nonetheless, if you don't have the ability to see an internist, please, definitely get a good primary care doctor, no matter the specialty, and just get to be seen, get to have the primary care needs taken care of.
Well, thank you so much for joining us today on In Your Prime.
It's been my pleasure. We're here to help. It's important to put this information out there. There's plenty of us out there, geriatricians, and please, keep us in mind for all geriatric care needs.
This program is sponsored in part by Kettering Health.
You've always looked forward to the years ahead. Say hello to healthcare that's with you every step of the way. Primary care for 65 years and older, with imaging services, wellness checks, prescription and nutrition help. From caring providers that understand your needs and concerns. All of it at a pace and schedule that fits your lifestyle, because our focus is on you. Kettering Health Years Ahead Primary Care, helping you look forward to the years ahead so they can be your best.
Our sponsors make this program possible. Thank you to Kettering Health, Ask Rafi Retirement Lifestyle Solutions, the YMCA of Greater Dayton, and Truehold. Dr. Nadella is a board-certified family physician who specializes in geriatric care for patients 65 years and older. She works at Kettering Health's Years Ahead Primary Care. Well, hello, Dr. Nadella, and welcome to In Your Prime.
Well, thank you for having me. It's my pleasure.
So why don't we just start? Tell us a little bit about yourself and how you got interested in treating geriatric patients.
Well, ever since I was a kid, I grew up in a family of doctors, and so I was kind of around medicine. I have a grandparent that has dementia, and so I was kind of keen on that diagnosis. Kind of pursued my medicine career, focused in on geriatrics after that.
And so I know you're here to talk to us about supplements. So what is a dietary supplement?
So dietary supplements are a wide range of products that are out on the market that can include vitamins, minerals that are sold, and it's a $2 billion market in the United States.
And can someone assess their own diet and determine whether they need a supplement?
Well, I hope we can all get our needed vitamins or supplements through our diet. That's really the best way to do it. But we don't always get that in every meal. And so there are ways to check in the blood if you need additional supplements. And so it is always advised to speak with your doctor before starting the supplements to see if you actually need it.
So tell us a little bit more about that process. How does someone determine if they need to take a supplement?
So initially, I talk to patients about their diet and try to figure out, is there something that they might be missing? For example, if they cut their dairy products out, they may be lacking in calcium, vitamin D. If they are vegan or vegetarian, they may be lacking in B12, folic acid. And so kind of getting into those discussions about your diet and then trying to figure out if we do need to check those in your blood, and if so, then what dosage do you need?
So, do older adults in particular, are they more likely to need to have dietary supplements?
It depends on their diet. If they are requiring less food, meaning like they're not as active, they're not having good intake, yes, they may need supplements. Their absorptions can change, their gut absorption can change as they age, and so they may not be absorbing all the needed vitamins and minerals. And yes, that is one of our groups that tends to require supplements.
Interesting. So, what are the benefits of vitamins and supplements?
Again, your body requires a certain amount of minerals and vitamins. They each have their own process, right? I had a patient that had night blindness, and it happens to be she was vitamin A deficient. And so once we replace that, night blindness resolved, she's able to have better quality of life. And so patients can come in with like, well, my joints hurt, and it could be vitamin D deficiency or B12 deficiency. And just checking for those, being vigilant about discussing their needs can help with their quality of life.
Yeah, and it sounds like having the right balance then of these vitamins and supplements can really make a difference in someone's health.
Yeah, I mean, it can provide less pain in their joints. They can move around better. They can be more active. They can drive at night. They can see colors better. So it can be various things.
So we're going to take a question from a viewer. So the question is from someone who says that they're in pretty good health. They don't take any kind of prescription medications. And their question is just, are there some general supplements that they should be trying to take?
In general, I do recommend at least taking a multivitamin. Again, we all try our best to have balanced meals, try to get our vitamins and minerals that we need through our diet. But again, we could be lacking in a meal here or there. So I do recommend a multivitamin. It can help with, again, the B12 that's also involved in memory issues. And I know that is one of our biggest goals, or our older adults, that's what they're worried about. And so those kinds of things can be helped early on as well.
And with regard to the multivitamin, I know if you go into the store, they have they have some that are special for geriatric patients. Is it better to take one specifically for your age group, or does it really matter?
I don't think it's really needed to pick on men, women, 50 plus, like all those things. If you are eating a balanced meal, just adding any regular generic multivitamin should help.
So how are supplements regulated, and how can someone be sure that they're getting something that's safe?
Unfortunately, supplements are not regulated. They are out in the market without any supervision. Once they are out in the market, the Food and Drug Administration does kind of track them, and side effects can be reported to them. And if they are not solving the issue of what they're advertised to treat, they will recommend to be removed off the market.
So are there steps that someone can take then to make sure that what they're getting is safe?
Certainly. I mean, you can talk to your doctor, review the ingredients with them before you start it. Pharmacy, dietitians, they're all good sources as well. There are independent sources like Consumer Lab. NIH Complementary Health has a website that's full of database related to supplements. So patients can consult those websites as well.
And so I know when someone goes to the doctor, they're always asked about their prescription medications. But is it important for people to tell their doctor what supplements they're taking as well?
Certainly, I mean, supplements interact with their other medications that are prescriptions. And so knowing those interactions, would be beneficial. Like vitamin K interacts with blood thinners, and that's important to know. There are lots of supplements that interacts with drugs, and so always discuss that with your physician and a pharmacist.
So when someone's shopping for a vitamin, how can they choose the safest alternative?
So I always recommend patients to start with plant-based products since they're less synthetics, they're less likely to have, GI side effects like bloating or abdominal discomfort or anything like that. There are a few brands that are out there that are plant-based, and so that would be my usual recommendation.
So some people choose to restrict their diet because, they want to be vegan or vegetarian or something else. Should those people be considering a supplement?
Yeah, once you restrict your diet, you certainly are losing out on the nutritional part of, what red meat offers or what eggs can offer, like your B12, folic acid. And so, yes, they certainly have to be on a supplement.
So how about people with food allergies?
I think the same applies, again, with food allergies, they're restricting their diet. And so, certainly, at least being on a multivitamin can help them get all of their nutrition. And then, again, discussing with your physician and getting on the more appropriate dosage of the supplements if you are lacking in those. A lot of the food these days is fortified with nutrition, so they can certainly add it in through the diet that they can accommodate.
So when you're talking with your patients, what are some of their top concerns when it comes to supplements?
There's so many advertisements out there, so many products out there. It's hard for them to figure out, which ones to trust, what to take, and some of these supplements are quite expensive. So it can be very hard to figure out, should I pay for this? And again, I always advise patients to talk to us before they go out and buy all these, whether it's a memory supplement or a joint supplement that's specifically targeted towards our older adults. Always talk with us before you go and buy these supplements.
Well, Dr. Nadella, thank you so much for joining us today on In Your Prime.
Well, thank you. It's been my pleasure.
Rafi Rodriguez is the owner of Ask Rafi Retirement Lifestyle Solutions, and today he's here to talk to us about life insurance and how that fits into our overall retirement planning. So welcome, Rafi. It's so good to have you again on In Your Prime.
Jana, it's a pleasure to be here again, and I enjoy sharing my expertise with you and with the In Your Prime viewers.
Well, you always bring such good information, and I know this is going to be a very interesting topic. So there seem like there are just so many different options for life insurance. Where does someone begin this process?
Well, the first step is to analyze how much do I really need? And that's a very common question. When people come see me, Rafi, I have this situation, where do I start? And the main thing is let's figure out where you are, where you want to be, and then we go through a couple of the steps to identify how much do they really need.
So what's the first step in helping someone figure out what kind of life insurance they need?
Well, firstly, the big conception about life insurance is I need it just in case something happens to me to pay final expenses and maybe taxes and so forth. But it's much more than that. But there's a few steps. Let's get into it right now. It's called the needs analysis. Okay, there's a couple of steps that we need to identify. For example, we need to identify what are your short-term needs that you require life insurance for? What are your long-term needs? And we're going to get to that in a second. And what are your obligations? So, for example, when I ask someone, what are your short-term needs? Is one of your objectives to ensure that there's enough money to send your kids to college or advanced school in case you die prematurely, God forbid? Would you be interested in ensuring that your spouse doesn't have to pay for a mortgage and the mortgage is paid for? Would you like your spouse that in case you die prematurely, it will be debt free? So we could use some of that money to pay credit cards or bills, car payments, or whatever the case may be. So those are short term. When we look at long term, then we identify what are some of those things that you still believe are important for the long term. Well, how about income for your surviving spouse? That's a long term need. Estate planning needs, those are long term needs. Final expenses, those are considered long term needs, and so forth. So now we have short term needs, long term needs, and then when we talk about obligations, is there anything in your life that you would like to cover that we haven't talked about? For example, are there any special needs children that need to be taken care of in case you're no longer with us? How about aging parents that you've been taking care of them? If something happens to you, would you like to leave a legacy through life insurance to ensure that they continue with their care? So you could see where this is a very in-depth conversation with folks that they typically don't talk about these things. So we identify the short-term needs, long-term needs, and obligations. And then the next step is, what are the assets? The assets that you have available that you could tap into right away. Unlike a house or a car that takes time to sell those properties for you to generate some revenue, we're talking about your savings, your investments, cash that you may have in hand and so forth that can be used to generate some, obviously some income to take care of some challenges that you need to cover with life insurance. So we take a look at the short-term needs, long-term needs, and obligations minus the liquid assets that you have, which is the things that you could actually cash out very quickly, and that gives you a number. That number gives you a ballpark figure of what you need for life insurance. Now, this is just a very simplistic way of letting people know how you assess the needs for life insurance. It's probably a little more complicated than that, depending on many different factors. Some of the factors that we talked about earlier is like, are you part of a divorce? Are you a divorced couple? I mean, reunited, so is theirs, ours, and his or hers, what have you? That complicates things a little bit. So it is a unique process that we have to go step by step to ensure that the individual who's purchasing the life insurance is very well aware of what needs to be taken care of.
Wow, that is a lot to consider. And it sounds like it's really just almost like an equation that you're following to get to a number that you need. Is that correct?
It's an equation that it gets complicated as we go along with the discussion. But yes, it's a process that equates to an equation. Yes.
Well, tell us about the different kinds of insurance that's out there.
Well, insurance is typically categorized in two basic types: term insurance for temporary needs and permanent insurance for permanent needs. For example, on the term insurance, is typically the most common in the United States. It's very, very low cost, but it only covers a particular term of coverage. For example, it could be 10, 20, 30 years. So when you hear a 20-year term, means you cover for 20 years. So in order for the a policy to pay out, you have to help out, and you may have to die within those 20 years. Nobody wants to do that. But it's intended to cover short-term needs, like, for example, a mortgage, college education for the kids, pay off some bills. And like I said, typically the premium is very, very low, but at the end of the term, the renewal is typically much higher. And this is one of the things that I caution a lot of clients, because you need to ensure that you have enough budget to take care of that additional premium if you want to renew that policy. Okay. On the permanent policy, then it is a policy that is supposed to cover you entire life. The premiums are much higher, but it will continue until the end of life, your life as the owner of the policy, as long as the premiums are paid. And these are typically for long-term objectives. For example, provide a supplemental income for your surviving spouse, because your retirement, your pension may not be all there for that other individual, for your surviving spouse. So life insurance provides typically tax-free income for that surviving spouse. It also takes care of estate planning needs or taxes at the end of life or what have you. So typically, term for temporary needs and permanent for more permanent needs.
So do people need to have both types of insurance or just one?
It all depends on the budget. Sometimes they say, okay, I don't need that big of an amount for long-term needs because I have investments growing up over time, but I need a term for specific needs, and it's an issue of a budget. It's very, very economical to buy that to ensure if something happens to me, God forbid, and I want my kids to go to college, and if I die prematurely, the money's there for college. So that's not a need that's forever. It's only for a particular period of time. So in some cases, if the budget allows you to pay for the permanent insurance will take care of both short and long term, but it costs more. So can you have both? The answer is yes. It all depends on your needs, and most important, what you can afford. And most important as well is your health, because the younger you are, the more insurable you are, because chances are you have less of health issues. The longer you wait to purchase life insurance for the needs that you have identified, the more expensive it's likely to be, because now you're going against the mortality tables and any health issues that will make you uninsurable. So I've always recommend my clients, if you can afford it and get as much as you can when you're young, that's the best course of action. Again, it's an issue of how much you need and can you afford it.
And how does life insurance fit into retirement planning?
Retirement planning includes life insurance as part of a risk mitigation factor, right? So I recommend that clients review their life insurance as part of their overarching financial or retirement plan at least once a year, to ensure that if we need to change the beneficiary in the life insurance because there's been some maybe divorce or what have you, that needs to happen. I've seen many cases where life insurance beneficiaries have not been updated, and they still have the previous spouse, for example, and if they die prematurely, it's not the current spouse, it's the previous spouse that gets the benefit. So reviewing your beneficiary is extremely important, and you also need to take a look at, are there any other health checkups that you need to maintain to ensure that the policy gives you the lowest cost. So as life insurance should be reviewed as part of your overarching financial and retirement plan.
And you said we should review our life insurance needs at least once a year. Are there other kinds of triggers where you would assess that need?
Well, once a year is probably adequate, and then we realize what changes have happened in your life that may require even more life insurance. And if the life insurance is not affordable due to health issue, for example, then would the investments pick up the slack, may I say? It is important not just to buy it and forget it. It's something to be reviewed every year.
Great.
Especially when we have the issue with the beneficiaries. Updating or reviewing those beneficiaries is extremely critical, because an owner can have owned that policy for 20, 30 years, but there has been a change. Maybe the surviving spouse is no longer there and you want to change the beneficiaries to your kids or your grandkids. So reviewing that on an annual basis as part of your financial plan is very, very important.
So this is just really great information and insights. Are there tools or other kinds of resources that people can use?
Absolutely. There's many resources through different websites, company websites, but also remember that AskRafi.com, that's my website, and I got plenty of information that is all educational about not only life insurance, but many, many financial planning topics that you could get a lot of value from.
So I am sure you see all kinds of things as you help people pick the best life insurance for them. What's the biggest issue you see that you really wish people would be aware of?
Well, one of them is it starts from when people buy the life insurance. They typically buy it and they take those key documents and put them away. And they forget that life changes. For example, if in the case of a new born baby, and you wanted part of the policy to pay for that child's education, but you forgot to name them in the policy and update the beneficiaries. In the case that you may have a need to help an aging parent, and in many cases, if there was a case of a divorce, update your beneficiaries, because I have seen cases where a gentleman had the life insurance. The beneficiary was a previous spouse, and the new spouse was not aware. And when he passed away, that came to be, and she was very unpleasantly surprised that she was not taken care of from that policy. So these are just samples. So reviewing the beneficiaries on a life insurance and the amount, maybe you need more. And in some cases, then we have to figure out, should we do it through life insurance or through investments, depending on your health condition, whether you insure or not. So life insurance is not something to buy and forget it. It's to be reviewed. It's almost like a living document, because how is the intent of the life insurance needs to be reviewed and updated as necessary.
So are there special considerations when we're thinking about long-term care and how that fits into life insurance planning?
Yeah, absolutely. As a matter of fact, a couple of years ago, there was a new feature on life insurance where you could have a long-term care rider or a critical illness rider on your life insurance, which means that some of the proceeds from that life insurance could be used while you're still living for either critical illness or a long-term care situation that you as the owner may need. One of the caveats that I share with my clients is be careful if we use that life insurance for that purpose, because the original intent may have been to provide income for the surviving spouse. And if the benefits are then used for long-term care, then we could be doing it at the detriment of your surviving spouse. So this is why having that conversation on an annual basis is so important, because long-term care is a different kind of insurance while you're still living and need those services. But life insurance can be used for that with a caveat. We got to ensure that there are enough assets in the estate to take care of the surviving spouse if the case comes to that.
Wow. Well, you've given us a lot to think about today and so much great information. Thank you so much for joining us today on In Your Prime.
Thank you.
Kim Sheehan has worked for the YMCA of Greater Dayton for almost 16 years in aquatics and health and wellness. She's a certified personal trainer and group exercise instructor, and currently serves as the Senior Health and Wellness Director at the Xenia YMCA. She's here today to talk with us about water aerobics. Hello, Kim. How are you today?
I'm well. How are you?
Great, thank you. And welcome to In Your Prime.
Thanks.
So why don't we start by telling us a little bit about yourself and how you got interested in health and wellness, especially for senior adults.
So I am our Senior Health and Wellness Director at the Xenia Y. I oversee all of our health and wellness activities, so personal training, group exercise classes, water aerobics classes, and I also oversee all of our senior programming. So I kind of got interested in that. I've always been an athlete, and throughout my career with the Y, I've noticed that a lot of the folks that we see tend to be older adults, especially during those daytime hours when I'm typically in my office. So that kind of sparked my interest with working with them. And I think that we're able to help them in a lot of ways.
So I know one of the things that we wanted to talk about today is water aerobics. Tell us about the benefits of water aerobics, especially for older adults.
There's so many benefits to taking a water aerobics class or a water exercise class. One of the big things is it's going to work on your cardiovascular health, your balance and coordination, and build strength. And it's going to be able to do all of that without creating high impact on your joints. So a lot of older adults, they start dealing with arthritis and that kind of thing. They're a little bit worried about the joint pain that they're going to feel if they're starting a strength training program, or something where they would be running or biking. They're worried about the stress that that's going to create on their body. And when they're in the water, that's highly reduced.
You know, some people may not be very confident swimmers. Do you have classes for people at all different levels?
Yeah, we do. So a lot of facilities, not just YMCA's, they have typically their water aerobics classes happening toward the shallow end of the pool where people can stand and touch. And then if it's something that's going to utilize the deep end of the pool, it's usually marked on whatever group exercise schedule that you're looking at. So you'll know if you're going to head toward deep water where you're not going to be able to stand.
So what kind of exercises do people do during water aerobics?
So water aerobics class exercises are really going to depend on what class you're taking. So I would really recommend checking whatever group exercise schedule and reading the class description. But a lot of them that are labeled as like a typical water aerobics class are going to start out with some cardio activity, and then they're going to utilize some pool equipment or the water to create some sort of resistance training also. But there are also a variety of classes. So some of those classes are dance-based classes. Like here we have aqua Zumba and aqua dance. So you're going to be doing mostly cardio, some strength, but it's all going to be to music and dancing. We have some deep end classes that are using mostly water as your resistance and that whole staying up in the deep end of the pool. And then we also have some higher intensity interval training type of water aerobics classes that you're doing really short bursts of hard activity and then you get little breaks in between. And we also have arthritis classes too. So those are going to be working more on joint mobility, and you're not moving at such a fast pace. And it's really about strengthening in slow motion those joints and doing a lot of stretching.
Yeah, so tell us a little bit more about how the arthritis classes differ from just the typical water aerobics classes.
Oh yeah, so usually in a typical water aerobics class, you'd be doing something kind of upbeat. In arthritis class, you're going to be more walking, and it's a lot smaller movements that are really focused on the joints that you're going to have a lot of pain in, and there's a lot of stretching that you do throughout those classes as well.
So it sounds like water aerobics can help someone manage pain that they're having with arthritis. Is that correct?
Yeah, so specifically arthritis aerobics classes, at our facility, we try to have those in a warmer water pool. Not that our other pool is super cold, it's usually around 83, 84 degrees, but our warm water pool is usually kept closer to 89. So the heat of that pool combined with the stretching of the joints that are usually going to give you a little bit more pain when you're on land is going to help reduce a little bit of pain for you.
So what kind of equipment do you use? I've heard that you use weights in particular, and I'm interested in, how does that actually work?
Yeah, so it depends on the class. So a lot of the water aerobics classes, when they say that you're using weights, you're using a foam dumbbell. So foam dumbbell is basically, you're going to be working kind of opposite of what you would if it were land-based and it had weight on it, because a foam dumbbell wants to float on top of the water. So the resistance comes from pulling it under. Whereas if you were on a land exercise, you would be working in the opposite direction.
Is there other equipment that you use that's specialized for water aerobics?
Yeah, so sometimes we'll utilize foam pool noodles. Those typically come in handy when you're doing more of your leg exercises or if somebody needs an assist for floating. And then it depends on what class you use. I teach some classes that are a little bit higher intensity where we'll actually break out some plastic plates that are going to create resistance more like what you would see in a fitness center.
So what would someone expect from their first class? What's that like?
So in your first class, your instructor, usually they will notice if you are new and they'll come over and greet you and make sure that you get set up with all the equipment that you need for that particular class, because every instructor is a little bit different. At the beginning of classes, they're going to go over what you need, what the goals of the workouts are, And then they're going to give you a heads up. They will provide modifications for you if you are looking for something with a little bit lower intensity or a little bit higher intensity. During the exercise, they will offer those options to you, so that you don't need to be worried or nervous or anything about that. Then they're going to take you through the workout. You're going to work at your own pace, usually in most water aerobics classes. So if the instructor's working super fast, you don't have to work that fast. It's your workout. So you can work at whatever speed you want to. They'll accommodate for that.
So it sounds like you can expect a lot of personalized attention in these classes. Tell us about that.
Oh, absolutely. So instructors, they typically know who's usually in their class. So if you're a new person, they're going to have a lot of focus on you. And then the participants, I know in our facility at our classes, they sort of form their own little niche groups. So your 10 a.m. water aerobics folks, they are going to embrace you and want to help. They're going to want to help you and make sure you have everything you need. And then if you do look like you're struggling or something, you could expect an instructor to just pop over and make sure you're okay. A lot of your classmates are going to want to see you have success in the class, and they're going to want to see you keep coming back. So they're going to be really welcoming and really helpful for you.
That sounds great. It sounds like a lot of fun.
It is.
You know, this may be outside of some people's comfort zone. Is there something that people can do to prepare themselves for their first class? Just something to make them feel more comfortable?
Yeah, I would definitely recommend visiting whatever facility they're taking classes in. Typically, an instructor isn't going to have a problem with you just observing a class the first day. If you're really nervous and want to know what you're getting yourself into, if you say, hey, I'd like to stop in and just check out a class, is that okay? Most places are going to be totally okay with that. And you can just kind of sit on the side and see what they're doing. If you're nervous about the water, I recommend getting in the water at least before you go to class, just so you can make sure, okay, I'm great in chest level water, I'm okay.
Yeah. So are there certain parts of the body that water aerobics most benefits?
Water aerobics can really, if you do it right, you could get a full body workout. So really cardiovascularly, I think that it's one of the best things you can do, because there are a lot of people who have concerns about different joint pain, and it's going to help you float and alleviate all that joint pressure. And then water aerobics is really great for building strength and balance and coordination, just because you constantly have to move against how the water is moving you. So you're bracing in all of those little spots that you wouldn't always hit if you were just standing up. And then if you do workouts right, you can hit every major muscle group throughout the workout.
Great. How many people are typically in a class?
That really depends on which classes you're taking. At our facility, we could have around 20 in a class, sometimes around 25. And then you have some classes that are a little more specialized that might only have about 10 people or so in them.
Well, if someone's interested, what's the next step for them? What should they do?
So we would love it if you came and visited us at the Y. You could definitely give us a call or check on our website to see if we have classes that would be beneficial for you. If you have questions about any of those, you can go ahead and give us a call. Or whatever facility you might want to take classes in, just give them a call and see what they need to do to get started. So at the Y, our classes are all included with your membership cost. So if you are a member to the Y, or Silver Sneakers member, or Renew Active member, or whatever, you can come take all of our group exercise classes without having to sign up or anything. If you're going to a different facility, they might have you register ahead of time so they know how many people are coming. All facilities have different rules, but for the Ys in general, you just show up whenever the class is offered.
Well, that's wonderful. Kim, thank you so much for joining us today and telling us about water aerobics.
No problem. Thanks for having me.
Connie Adams is the Chief Sales Officer for Truehold, which is a company that helps people tap into their home's equity as a way of staying in their home longer as they age. Hello, Connie, and welcome to In Your Prime.
Hi, good to be here.
Well, thanks so much for joining us today. And why don't we start by telling us a little bit about yourself and about the company Truehold?
Yeah, I'd love to. So 90% of Americans want to continue to live at home as they get older. And home is a safe place, right? It's community. And yet our families are all too often faced with unexpected health or financial challenges. And so after witnessing our own loved ones go through this process, we founded Truehold with the mission to provide options when families are faced with these impossible decisions. I personally worked in the senior living industry for 17 years, and this scenario was actually true for my family. My father was diagnosed with vascular dementia shortly after my mom passed away. And we knew as a family it was going to be really important for him to be at home in familiar surroundings for as long as possible. So we hired caregivers along with our family to stay with him. And it gave us an additional 5-6 years of a great quality of life. And then we hit the road that so many hit, which is we needed even more care. And we had to decide, how are we going to do that at home, or will this require a community? And because most of his savings, like many seniors, was in his home, we had to sell his home and choose to go the community route. And, we're not alone in that. Families face it every day. And we're really working at Truehold to give families another option for that great quality of life. I'm the Chief Sales Officer here at Truehold, and I oversee a team of trusted advisors, and they really just kind of guide families through the process. And when they're reviewing their options to consider, how do we want to manage our equity and what's best for us, and whether our sale-leaseback offering is a good option for them.
Yeah, you're right. It is something that, almost everyone deals with their families. So what are some of the benefits for older adults of staying in their homes?
Yeah, I know it was true for us. And I hear kind of 3 things when I talk to seniors over the years, which is home is comfort. It's a place of refuge. It's familiar. They have a routine. They have their neighbors. They have support. And home is also independence, right? You get to live where you want, the way you want, with those you want. And then of course, community, right? Whether it's kids or grandchildren or your friends or your church, being in that environment is so good for the health and well-being of all seniors.
So under what circumstances would an older adult want to tap into the equity of their homes so that they could stay there longer?
Yeah, there's probably 3 high-level reasons. I think seniors are feeling a little bit house rich, cash poor. And so the reasons they would tap into their equity would be any debt, to meet their healthcare needs, and the ability to live how and where they want. So with debt, that may be personal debt that they've incurred, but with the cost of goods going up and they have a fixed income, they want to be sure that they can live within their means. So getting rid of that debt would be important. And then of course, typically the healthcare challenges are usually unexpected and not in the plan. And so it's hard to kind of look ahead and know those are coming. And then lastly, in regards to, living how and where they want to live, some are looking like, in 5 years, I want to move, I want to downsize and move in a smaller space, or I'm looking to move closer to my children. And they want to make a move now to access their equity because, we just came out of the best season ever. We're at the top of the market. And as they look forward, they're concerned about the recession ahead.
So I heard you use that term sales-leaseback a couple of times. What does that mean?
So a sale-leaseback is really just 2 common transactions kind of built into one. It's a home sale and it's a lease. We buy your home and then we lease it back to you. So going forward, we're responsible for the maintenance, repairs, upkeep, property taxes, insurance, and it kind of lifts that burden and gives the seller the access to their full equity. this gives them the option. So when they reach out to Truehold, we really just start by understanding, where are you currently? What are your goals? What are you looking to accomplish? And then we provide the details and answer questions about the sale-leaseback. If it's a good option for them and they choose to move forward, then we provide them an offer on the house, which they can accept or decline with no obligation. And then from there, if they choose to move forward, it takes about 30 days to close. So there's no listings, there's no open houses. And one of the exciting things is that we're actually building a platform right now for our residents. And so on staff, we have a PhD, Lisa. She's our Director of Care Management. And so for any of our residents that need to access additional resources, maybe they need home care services, or they're just trying to find information, they have access to Lisa and her team at any time. So they can, send that through the portal, or they can, if they prefer someone on the other line to answer the phone as I do, they can pick up the phone and call her great staff. And the platform's pretty cool in that you can order services, you can order landscaping or grocery delivery. There's some perks on there for discounts. So it's a great environment when you're leasing back your own home.
So people may be familiar with things like refinancing or reverse mortgage. How is a sales leaseback different from those things?
Yeah, I think it comes down to probably two big differences. One, those incurred debt. So when you do, like the refinancing or the home equity or the reverse mortgage, that's a paid back situation. In comparison with the sale leaseback, it's literally the sale of your home and you receive all the equity. The other big difference is that you can't always access all your equity with those options. So typically a reverse mortgage, you can access somewhere around 50%. And for many of our seniors, sometimes that's a really good option in that they only want to access a small percentage for a certain goal they're trying to achieve. But if they're looking to pull that money out, to purchase another home or put in an annuity or pay for healthcare bills, they may want access to more equity than that limited amount.
So what are the kinds of things that someone should really think about if they're considering a sales leaseback option?
Yeah, I think with any important decision, their home is likely their largest asset. And so really engaging those around you. So for a lot of our customers, either it's a spouse or it's their children or an attorney or a pastor, right? Maybe even an agent, frankly, that when they're weighing their options and considering what's their best next step, getting those engaged with those that you really trust. So the things they would begin to think about is, what are we going to do with the equity? Are we kind of willing to take on more debt? Are we looking to stay in our home for maybe 6 months, a year, 5 years, forever? And building a plan so that you can take the steps along the path. We work with a lot of children who are assisting their parents. And one of the biggest concerns for the kids is, what if the tree falls? Or what if an appliance breaks? Or what if they have a plumbing issue? And families are living, further apart now, maybe than ever in history. And so dealing with that via the phone, having odd people come in and out of the house, kids really want to know that their parents are safe and protected. And that kind of makes this option pretty valuable in that they're trusted professionals that do that. They know they can make a call and have any concerns addressed timely.
So let's take a question from a viewer. So the question is, once someone has exercised a sales leaseback, then who pays for updates to the home?
So all of our residents from time to time have needs that require a change. And so we kind of address this in two ways. One, when we purchase the home, we actually go in and do a home inspection so we can really understand any current needs you have, anything that needs to be addressed. If down the road there are changes, that need to be made, maybe there's been a health event and it's going to be important to have grab bars or special lighting or a doorway. Certainly something small Truehold would do. And if it requires more than that, we'll engage our management team and provide that information and work with our customer to ensure we get those things in place for them.
So if someone, is interested in looking into this more, what's the next step for them?
Yeah, it's really easy. We would love it. They can obviously go on our website at truehold.com. They can inquire there, and one of our Truehold advisors will reach out, or they can call us directly at 866-906-5428. And listen, our main goal is just to help people find the right path for their unique situation. Everyone's a little bit different, but we want to help, even if it means we help them with the local resource there in Cincinnati. The most important thing is that they're confident and comfortable and have a good plan in place.
Well, Connie, thank you so much for joining us today on In Your Prime.
It was my pleasure.
Thank you for watching In Your Prime, and a big thank you to our sponsors, Kettering Health, Ask Rafi Retirement Lifestyle Solutions, the YMCA of Greater Dayton, and Truehold. Thank you for joining us for In Your Prime.